right, well, good afternoon, everyone. On May 4th, 2007, students sat in their classrooms with their friends looking forward to weekend activities. They had no idea this would be the last time they would sit in those seats, surrounded by their friends. At 9:40 p.m. on May 4th, an EF5 tornado came up Main Street and destroyed this beloved community. Worldly possessions, historical artifacts, favorite stuffed animals were torn apart. Loved ones were lost, and we know there is no greater loss than the ones we love. When asked if the city would rebuild, State Representative Dennis McKinney states, "We'd pause, because we never thought of that question. It was a given. This is our home." Research has shown that students suffer reading and math deficiencies up to as much as 5 years after being affected by a natural disaster. Up to 5 years. Helping alleviate toxic stress in a post-disastrous situation is critical. In order to help these children and this community return to a sense of normalcy, the schools must be reestablished. Our mission and priority from this point forth is to rebuild the city's educational institution. Due to the extent of the damage, the facility will need to start from scratch. A task like this is not to be taken lightly, and there are several factors we need to consider. What kind of environment do we want to send our children to? What kind of space would the children be excited to enter into? What does the future of this building hold? And what type of impact will this structure have on our community? Next slide, please. Taking into consideration the Iroquois Nation's thought process and forward thinking, the decisions we make at this moment are going to affect the 7th generation. What kind of success are we setting them up for? As Senator Sam Brownback once said, "You have a great opportunity to build a great new community out of a terrible disaster." God never designed for us to be lone rangers, but for us to come together. Next slide, please. The Education Task Force's next efforts will be to connect with the Finance and Economic Task Force in conjunction with the Kansas Division of Emergency Management's Planning and Mitigation Bureau to establish eligibility for grants and funding, recognizing we need funding for the following items: temporary facilities, internet access, supplies, academic, dietary, and hygienic, administrative expenses, and permanent facilities. The Department of Education grants, USDA grants, SBA loans, and other sources such as Learning Undefeated, Donors Choose, and Scholarships 360 for supplies, in addition to utilizing our standard insurance policies, is what we're going to look at for funding options. We will be in contact with the Infrastructure Task Force to discuss the accessibility, timelines, and placement of temporary utilities, as well as cell and internet towers. We will also discuss housing options with the Housing Task Force to ensure we're able to not only accommodate our displaced families, but our faculty and staff as well. And lastly, we will work with the Medical Task Force to ensure mental and physical health care will be readily available for our students and staff. We are dedicated to the growth and revitalization of this community, and we believe it is in our best interest to start with the future of Greensburg. My name is Heather Thomas, and I present to you today, Team E. We have Amanda, Luke, Ryan, Giancarlo, and Byron. And we present our proposal to get the students back in school on target for this next school year.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Swan. I'm here to discuss our timeline for reopening the schools. It is of the utmost importance that we reopen our schools according to the state schedule. As a community, we will need to work together to ensure a learning environment for our children this fall. Our first task is to work out the logistics of the temporary site location, clearing debris, power, and internet. This plan will be completed no later than June 1st to ensure time for the city, county, and community approval. Once approved, we will move forward with site cleanup and establish the layout for the temporary and permanent building plans. This cleanup will take great effort and we'll need the involvement of the community and surrounding areas to meet our deadline. Cleanup and site layout will be completed July 1st. Temporary trailers will arrive no later than July 15th. Faculty and transportation needs will be arranged by July 15th. We need temporary trailers set up by August 1st to allow the teachers to not only set up the classrooms with a warm and welcoming environment, but to develop curriculum conducive to the new learning environments. K through 12 will be set up in one location during this transition. Neighboring schools will host our teams for practice and games as we rebuild our community and schools. Our permanent new school will be open before the fall of the 2010 school year. Our new school will also have K through 12 in the same facilities, as we feel this is the best option for our community. Our new school will be a community focal point with energy efficient features, a courtyard for kids of all ages, as well as community spaces. With everything our community is facing, reopening our schools will be challenging, but as a community, we will make it happen. We will meet our deadlines and open this fall. To further discuss the site selection, I will turn things over to Luke.
So, rebuilding our school after a major storm. Good afternoon. My name is Luke Tyler. I'm the Assistant Director of CELCAT. We'll be talking today about why site selection is so important for our community, how it brings us together and fulfills our needs for the community. When we talk about the different locations available to rebuild our school, the only logical choice is Greensburg. If Greensburg isn't where we rebuild, then what message are we sending to the community? The children of Greensburg and surrounding communities aren't important enough to be taught in Greensburg? Or your kids don't belong in town? What message does that send to the families? That your legacy of our town's future isn't important enough to be taught in town? No, it's not the message we want to send. Not only do we want them in Greensburg, but we want them on Main Street. They should be the focal point showing our investment in our future, their personal growth, and the growth of our community. Having a K through 12 school cultivates stronger bonds and the true sense of community. With the setup of 15 temporary trailers being used for 12 portable classrooms, one for each grade, one cafeteria, and 2 restroom trailers spread over the existing facilities, many of these buildings will be able to be utilized as multi-purpose buildings. While construction begins on the permanent school on the land that we already own, not only will it help in saving valuable dollars, but it will also ensure that downtown is full of youth and families. With the school on Main Street, our older students will still have the opportunity to go into town for lunch or even after school, once again filling Greensburg with youth and families. This is the foundation of our community, families learning and growing in Greensburg. So, as I stated, we must rebuild our school in Greensburg, in town, on Main Street. The legacy of our town and its youth, the future of not only our families, but this community depends on it. With that, Ryan, it's on you.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Ryan Dudley, and I've been creating a plan for the reconstruction of the community center and the sports facilities within our community. One of the first steps would be to clear a plot of land near the permanent location for the new community center. With this plot of land, a large temporary tent structure can be set up to serve as a meeting point for the community, as well as provide necessary essentials in the days following the natural disaster. These essential supplies include, but are not limited to, food, water, clothes, toiletries, and more. These necessities are typically hard to come by when needed most. A community center is an essential part of every thriving small town community. Not only does this give our residents an area to gather, but also an area to bond in their most difficult hour. Some of these permanent designs for the new community center allow this facility to serve as a multifunctional building, serving as a storm shelter and temporary housing in the event of another natural disaster. The design shown on the right can provide shelter for nearly 1,100 residents. This community center can also be used as an indoor basketball, volleyball court to serve the local youth with the start of a youth program. I personally grew up going to our local community center in a town with a slightly larger population. The time spent at these fields was not only a way of bonding within the community, but also bonding within your own family. This building would also have workout equipment for the community and all neighboring communities that would be available at an extremely affordable monthly membership cost. Funding for this community center would look to large organizations such as YMCA, Nike, Adidas, or similar, as well as the neighboring communities, since it would serve their own residents as well. So this, that community center there wouldn't be just for Greensburg, it would also serve the residents in surrounding areas. In conjunction with the school's athletic department, we would clear a plot of land for development of a regulation baseball, softball field, a track and field facility integrated with the football field. There will be a gap of time that our teams will have to play away games at the neighboring communities while the construction of our fields are ongoing, but we will have areas for our teams to condition and practice using drills. The long-term goal for these facilities would be to hold district conferences and matches to bring the neighboring communities into our hometown. Not only would this give our kids a sense of being at home for most major games, but it would also bring funding for our school through concessions, admissions, and our surrounding stores. Some key features of the construction of these fields would be to have concession stands built in underneath each of the bleachers to serve as an emergency storm shelter for all families in the event of severe weather many miles from their own homes. Time is of the essence when it comes to construction of these new facilities. Our students will not only be able to compete at state conferences, but they will excel, bringing hometown pride to our newly reconstructed community. Funding for the startup of these facilities would look to the professional organizations within the state and the Department of Education and Athletics of Kansas. Both of these facilities would be open to the public at any time during a community state of emergency. There will be designated personnel responsible for opening these facilities at a moment's notice of the storm sirens sounding throughout our homes. And that's all for the community center and outdoor facilities.
Thanks, Ryan. I'll be talking about the building design. Good afternoon. My name is John Carlo Escalera. I work for Miller Electric out of Jacksonville, Florida. I have the opportunity today to present to you our Sustainable Comprehensive Master Plan, as we call it. I would like to start reading off a quote by Mayor Bob Dixon. It says, "The only true green and sustainable things in life are how we treat each other, and that includes how we treat our future generations." This quote was a major influence and inspiration for many of the decisions made in the planning process of our school design. Where will the school be 50, 100 years from now? What community do you want to leave for your children? what about the future generations? Will they be able to enjoy it as well? These were some of the questions that drove the design process of our school. We want to build a school that serves as a major focal point, a catalyst for future buildings, and promote student health. One in which we integrate a sense of community, encourage mentorship, and instill the desire to achieve. We made sure that our design took into consideration one very important element: our future generations. A great part of our approach was to incorporate. Thanks. A great part of our approach was to incorporate innovative and sustainable strategies that have the capacity to endure and continue to exist. For example, optimizing daylight, harvesting rain. I'll talk individually about it. I'll just mention them. Harvesting rainwater, energy production capabilities, and energy efficient alternatives, proper use of resources, the presence of safe rooms, and use of reinforced walls in some locations. Now, let's highlight some of the sustainable features and strategies that we would like to implement. First one is daylight and natural ventilation. So the use of polycarbonate windows. So our school district understands the importance of daylight for increasing student academic performance, focus in all classrooms, and overall mental health of the students in our community. These windows are shown up there, cut winter heat loss and are more durable than the other glass alternatives. Next up would be water collection and sustainable options. To reduce potable water use, cisterns will be part of our design. This will enable to capture rainfall and meet irrigation needs during dry months. Low-flow toilets and shower heads are projected to save thousands of gallons of water a year. Next up, closed-loop ground source heat pumps, geothermal heat pumps will be able to heat, cool, supply, or build our building with hot water and comfortable HVAC conditions while saving power consumption. Materials and construction. To avoid harvesting raw material and minimizing waste, products with recycled content will be sorted and used throughout, from interior wood furrings, panels reclaimed from other destructed sites, to exterior furrings, sidings, and concrete blocks that can be used for high traffic areas. Last but not least, safe rooms and rooms with hardened walls. The incorporation of new safe rooms able to meet not only the school's needs, but the community needs as well. Quad locks and quad deck FEMA 361, I have wrote it down here, compliant. This just means they've been designed and tested to withstand the Category 5 tornado. That's all I got for you guys today as far as the design. I'll be passing the mic over to Byron Osborne with IBW 58.
Gotta make sure you said that. My name is Byron Osborne, and we have a plan. We now have a chance to reimagine our education system. This could restore our families, retain our population, and revive the hope and spirit of Greensburg. That hope and spirit is found in our most precious resource, our most guarded investment, our children. So what happened to the children? Well, when I was a child, there were 4 things that I knew, 5 things that were absolutes. 1, I knew my name. 2, I knew the location of my house. 3, I knew the location of my grandma's house. 4, I knew where my school was. And 5, I knew where the soda shop was. Unfortunately, on May 4th, as the tornado hit town, 4 of those 5 foundations went blowing in the wind. Put yourself in those little shoes, watching your parents, hearing the uncertainty in their fear, in their voices, those voices that always brought comfort and guidance. Think about your pets. Think about your friends, or that nice lady down the street who handed out the best Halloween candy. Think about sitting there wondering if they're okay. There's so much to do, so many questions to ask. Well, now we're at a point where there are no wrong answers. There's only ideas and effort that we must use to surround our children and reveal a brighter future in such a dark time. My portion of this presentation is dedicated to rebuilding educational opportunities through strategic partnering, providing care while using the tools that can only be forged in the bonds of a tight-knit community, and creating innovative programming that will benefit child and parent alike. So I began to think. An immediate reaction to such a disaster would be tell the kids to sit back, take a back seat, let the adults handle this. Let us push forward. But that's not community. If we want the next generation of this fair city to be made whole, then we need to do this together. We need the voices of our youth. We need to hear their stories. We must give them a seat at our table. To that end, I propose that we form a committee of students who will engage with our school board and superintendent on new design features of our permanent campus. Parents can also observe to offer support as we explore ways to appropriate insurance and FEMA funds to the hearts and minds of our students. There's spaces in our school that don't have to be reserved strictly for academic use. There's places in our community that can serve our students for dual use. The purpose of our student, parent, school administration town halls will be to explore additional education outside of our previous system and ways to maximize our school during non-peak hours. Our kindergarten through third graders have lost playgrounds, cartoons, bedrooms, books, and toys. If we use these meetings correctly, the temporary classrooms can provide a controlled environment where teachers and volunteers can help make a difference in our child's lives. When our students aren't in our care, they're in temporary housing, and this presents new obstacles. To address those needs, we plan on using government resources designed to support youth who have been displaced by disasters. Grant dollars and philanthropic efforts can supply remote learning devices. We can seek out volunteers who can help educate our parents on how to use these laptops. Our teachers and our admin staff will use state-approved curriculum saved to thumb drives as virtual school books that can be accessed from home, then brought to assembly for review. Tech companies can provide internet access to keep our classrooms connected and make sure our students remain enrolled in our schools. These public-private partnerships are essential, but for some of our students, it's just not enough. The nonprofit sector, they can provide mobile STEM labs to deploy so we can meet our children where they are. We will be intentional, and we will need you to be patient. We also need to consider where our children are mentally. Daily social interaction is not only necessary, but in many cases, your friends are your first line of therapy. Studies have shown that educational deficiencies exist up to 5 years post a natural disaster, and children between the ages of 7 and 13 exhibit acute stress levels more than 2 years after survival. We will provide support for our students by encouraging interaction and using those academic classroom and campus spaces during 2 of the most important times of the day, breakfast and lunch. By having our student body eat together, we will encourage community, belonging, and hope to create mentorship between our older and our younger students. Mentoring not only helps with life skills, it also sets one on a positive career path. We've given some thought to post-high school, seeing that over 80% of our residents graduate, yet less than 20% complete college. This tells us that career-centered programming needs continued attention. We believe early exposure to agriculture in the form of student-led community gardens would provide outside-the-box education. For our adult career-ready residents, we can explore employment training with contractors in the trades that are coming to rebuild our neighborhoods and our businesses. Again, we're using private partnerships to encourage workforce development. We can also leverage our use of emerging energy efficiency technology funded by government dollars to create good IBEW union apprentice opportunities and more work for NECA contractors. I thought NECA might clap for that one. That's all right. We'll get there. In closing, the reopening of our schools will only be possible through county-wide strategic partnerships, help and direction from our federal government, assistance from private business and the nonprofit sector, and most importantly, our community partners, our parents, and our students. Building this school will be our children's contribution, and it'll be remembered for generations to come as how our students revitalized Greenburgh. Thank you for your time, and let's go Mavericks.
Real quick, as we get ready to wrap up our group presentation and the second session in Greensburg, we'd like to take the opportunity to thank Richard and Frank for enduring the Volt 8 training with us. But also, Mr. Dixon, thank you for your time. Thank you for the time you took out of your schedule, and not just you opening up to us, but also opening up your town to us. We appreciate it.
All right. Well, let me tell you, what we saw here today was a complete pleasure for us to watch. First of all, for Team E, that was a great opening. You did a great job with your opening, and you did a great job with the closing. And you four guys in the middle there gave us some great information. That was very well done. I was very pleased with it. To be introduced, Frank and I had a moment to chat in the back of the room a little earlier. And for you guys to have been introduced to this crisis 2 days ago, and then to come in here and present these plans speaks volumes about your organizational skills. You guys did a tremendous job here. Well put, these well thought out. Yeah, I thought so too, Bob. I would have given every one of them an ovation here. The plans were well thought out. They were well assembled. Each one of them. I don't think there was any that lacked any assembly issues here at all. And keep in mind, this is the second year that we've changed this process here. And we continue to learn from you as we go through this so we can enhance it even more so next year. We've learned some things already this year that we will incorporate into next year's program. And you guys have led the way. Kelly Lamp, where are you, Kelly? There he is, sitting right here. Kelly, you attended every one of the capstones last year. You sat through every one of them. Did you get all of them? Not most of them. You got most of them anyway. I'm going to be quite honest with you. We were a little disappointed in one or two of them. Frank and I were. We thought they were not. They didn't take them seriously. At least one. I was incredibly disappointed. Today, I'm not disappointed at all. You guys, as a team, will stay together through the remainder of this program, okay? And to the team leaders here, it's going to be your responsibility, and I'll say this tongue-in-cheek, it'll be your responsibility to keep the team on a certain leash, okay? Because Let me tell you, the worst thing you can do is let your team members down, and that's what happened last year. We had a couple of folks who did not keep up their end of the bargain when we left our respective meetings, and it showed, and it was an embarrassment. It was an embarrassment to have people from NECA and the IBEW come in the audience and watch that lack of commitment to the process. I don't think I'm going to have that with this group. You are a much different group, and I'm very pleased here today to talk with you. Now, with that said, there are 3 guys who are not here who started this program with you. They probably will return in Chattanooga, okay? As soon as I get commitment that they're going to be in Chattanooga, I will assign them to one of the 5-member teams, and I'll let you know who it is. I hope you guys will reach out to that individual. I don't think we'll have any problem with any of the 3 of them in coming into the group. But Denise, I don't remember. Do we have anyone who's making up Chattanooga, who needs to make up Chattanooga this year? I can't remember either. We'll have it. We'll have that information. But we may have 1 or 2 people who missed Chattanooga last year that need to make it up this year. So if that's the case, we will assign them to one of the teams as well. So you may pick up 1 or 2 members in your team. You will also be given your capstone project themes when we get to Chattanooga. We will assign those to you. It'll be some issue in the electrical industry that you'll work on as a team and make a presentation. Those presentations are generally about an hour in length, and about 10 minutes each on a 6-person team, if you will, very much like you did today. But it will require some research and some thinking, and maybe some thinking outside the box. And one of the things I want to remind everybody, this is a learning environment. It's okay for us to kind of expand our minds, to think beyond what we normally think, and to make some arguments that you might want to make about the particular future of the IBEW and NECA. It's okay to do that. It's controlled. It'll be in a controlled environment. We're not going to publish it or put it out. We're going to keep it internal. People will watch it, perhaps, but that's what I will preface before every presentation, that it's a learning environment. We want you to think outside the box, okay? And sometimes people ask, why do we come to rural America and have you take a look at a small town in south central Kansas that was annihilated by EF5 tornado? Well, in crisis leadership, what we want you to get out of this is how to control what is seemingly uncontrollable, okay? That's the whole purpose of you being here and doing this process. Some of the things that we deal with on a daily basis in this industry seem uncontrollable at times. Our market share has dipped in this country on a national basis to about 18%. What do we have to do to get that turned around? And it's going to take brilliant minds like those of you sitting in this audience today to make that happen. We can no longer afford to be sharpening sticks and driving it in each other's eyes in a labor management environment. We just can't do that. Our jobs are at risk. The electrical industry will survive in this country. What I'm fearful of is the unionized electrical industry. Where's it going to be? But you guys have demonstrated the leadership qualities that it will take to turn this around. I made some notes up here while you were talking. Sometimes we have to decide with speed over precision, okay? And what a great example here in Greensburg of having to decide with speed over precision initially, but then you have to go back and put the precision in place. You might have to make an immediate decision. We have to adapt boldly to some of the changes. We have to make adaptation. Our ability to adapt to a changing environment is the stick by which we're measured. And if we don't have the ability to adapt in this environment, we're going to be lost. We're just going to lose our jobs. We're going to lose everything that our predecessors have worked for. Then, the next note I have here is we have to reliably deliver to our constituents. Our constituent contractor association, our members, And if we're not committed to, delivering reliably delivering to our constituents, we're cutting them short. They're members. They pay dues to the organizations, and we need to represent them. And then we've got to engage each other. If we're not willing to engage each other and debate, then we will not have any type of effective impact. So I want us to keep that in mind as we go forward. Now, we're going to have a trunk or treat here this evening. We'll put, as cold as it is, I don't know how many kids will show up, but if there's candy involved, my guess is they're going to be there. We got some candy we're going to distribute, and we're going to have dinner at 4:30, right? Go ahead, Frank.
Just a couple announcements. Okay. First of all, Dennis McKinney, I thought he should all come on up.
Dennis, come on up for a moment.
Since he was the star of the video that we showed, the 22-minute video with his daughter.
Yeah, I didn't see him come in.
And then, also, there's a person that makes Richard and I look good, and I don't want to forget that, and that's Denise. She works her tail off all year round to make this happen. She deals with the hotel, she deals with the food, she deals with everything. So I just want, if you get a chance, thank her, please, because we couldn't do this without her.
Yeah. Dennis, come on up. Maybe you can get a chance to say a few words to the group before we adjourn here. Yeah, one thing while he comes up, Chattanooga's going to change this year. Okay, this will be the first year that we changed Chattanooga, very much like we changed this program away from show and tell to you guys doing the work. How you doing, my friend? Chattanooga's going to be a little different as well. You're going to get some assignments before you come to Chattanooga, both team assignments and individual assignments. You're going to get some reading assignments before you show up there. The team will have to take perhaps one or two leaders. Somebody may take Grant. Somebody may take, who's our bad boy?
Braxton Bragg.
Yeah, Braxton Bragg. They named Fort Bragg after him. But he was a general that was not well liked in the Confederate Army. We're talking about in Chattanooga the failure of leadership. So we're going to show you that failure. Class will be held right on the battlefield. We'll be right out in the middle of the Chickamauga National Park. And God willing, it doesn't rain on us. We'll get out there and walk through a couple of battlefields where during the Civil War, you could have walked from one end of the battlefield to the other and never stepped on the ground. That's how many bodies were laying out there. So this is quite emotional at times to see some of this, but it's a great program. Dennis McKinney here yesterday, he's now with the Department of Agriculture, and he had to go to a meeting down in southwest Kansas. But Dennis, it's always a pleasure to have you with us, and if you don't mind saying a few words to this group, I would appreciate it.
Anything in particular you want to cover?
No, just we've covered about everything. Just tell the folks what you experienced with. They saw the video of you and the young lady that you rescued out from under the one thing I was interested in from that video was they said it had. The video said that the baby had something red running down his back, and you finally figured out it was transmission fluid. How in the hell did that happen?
Well, it was either their car or my pickup had gone over that small pile of rubble that they were underneath. So, and he'd been doused with automatic transmission fluid, which, I mean, from my faith background, that was a sign the good Lord was taking care of him. It wasn't anything we'd done. So, looking out after him. But I think that, I'll be brief. One of the key examples of leadership that always keeps coming back to my mind, and maybe you've already discussed it, was the bank president and his wife who got into town Monday after the tornado. Did you already talk about that?
But they kind of know about it.
Yeah, they got into town, cleared the debris, got into the bank, got into the vault, got a cash box, started on the hood of a pickup, and later moved to a tent, but cashing checks because they knew people were going to need money. Had, I think it was $40,000 in the cash box. And people come up to cash checks. Some people didn't have a check, didn't have any checks, of course. They said, how much money do you need? It's kind of like on that scene from It's a Wonderful Life where he said, how much do you need? There's a run on the savings and loan. People say, oh, $200, okay? He said, sure. Didn't have a check, they just wrote it down. And other people came up and they said, Tom, I don't have an account at your bank. but I need some cash. He said, how much do you need? And they gave him the cash. And they wrote it down, didn't have any change, wrote it down on the legal pad, and he will tell you today they did not lose $1. But that's the kind of leadership that makes the community work, that looks out for people when they're at their lowest point and takes care of people. And talking about failures of leadership, that was a success of leadership. And I just think going forward, as we look at what's going around us today, the relatively new leader of the United Auto Workers, whether you like him or not, is thinking much more strategically than we have in the past. It's a different kind of leadership, and I've been fascinated watching him. Not saying I like him, but I'm just saying he thinks much more strategically than we have in the past. And I think as we look forward, exactly what you said is true. Where do we go in your industry where you continue to have, support employers who do good quality work, hire people, train them well, pay them well, and achieve the best results, not just for workers, but for people out there who need electrical work done? That's the key. We need to make sure that goes forward. And what I've learned is, particularly as I've been in a number of jobs where I've traveled Kansas, and you can see in every community where you have strong leadership, we've had strong leadership for 20 or 30 years, it shows up today. And it's the same in your industry. If you're developing people to grassroots level to be leaders through next month, next year, next decade, it pays off tremendously. And that's why these programs are important. Because your leadership, and some of these things to you doesn't sound that great now, but the fact that you're going through, putting yourself in the situation, how do we plan our way out of this and how do we execute our way out of this following the plan, is critical thinking. And I'm glad you're here developing that.
Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate it. I could not have said that better. All right, guys, you did very well. We're going to have dinner at 4:30, right, Denise? At the Crazy Mule right down the street here. Then at 5:30, they're going to have trunk or treat. For those of you that want to come back, not everybody has to come back, but we're going to chunk some candy out in the streets anyway. And then tonight there's a movie. For those of you who want to come, the community's invited to come in and watch the movie. And we normally get 50 or 60 people, I guess, total come in to watch the movie. I don't know what we'll get tonight, but Goosebumps will be on, I think it's 7:37 or 7:30, George? 7:15, right in the middle. 7:15. Those of you that want to watch it, please feel free to come. I know some of the NECA reps have to leave. You're going to leave early morning, so you probably need to get some rest. You guys travel safely tomorrow. I'm going to leave right after dinner tonight myself. I have to be in Southern California tomorrow. So I will see you guys in Chattanooga next. Yes, Byron?
Hear from the mayor about how we did.
There you are, Mr. Mayor.
I'll be like Richard because I feel from my heart that the whole process you guys do in 2 days is just amazing, and the thought processes. You guys did a great job, as did every group. I'll just say one thing that you were addressing, and were you here when Byron was talking about the youth in the school? I was so impressed with all of your presentations, but involvement of our youth, our superintendent at the time, Darren Hedrick, when we would take groups to go tour the school, he'd have juniors and seniors, or high school students, and junior high students given those tours, pointing out green features, pointing out lead features, things they're doing. And he was, and the staff were really good about involving the students in visitors in the school. And I think that meant a lot to the visitors too. Yeah. And I just want to say too, because I won't see all of you probably later after supper and everything, thank you for coming to Greensburg. Thank you very much. It blesses us. During each one of those presentations, you didn't see it, but once in a while I get a little teary because, man, that's spot on. You guys you didn't go through it, but yet you have gone through it. And thank you. Blessings on you all. We wish you the best in the rest of your endeavors.